Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I say all three because whether you are joining us live or later on demand, we want to welcome you to the third session of the INSITE 2020 webinar series. We are so excited to bring a group of our internal leaders into the industry together with you to talk personally about trucking in the COVID-19 era, insights from real truck owners. My name is Leah Shaver, and I'll serve as host and moderator of our expert panel. I want to thank all of you for what you are doing to keep our country moving through this difficult time. During the coronavirus pandemic, as professional drivers continue to deliver necessities across North America, I am cheering for you. I worry about you. I hope the best for you. And today, we are so happy to connect with you. Before we introduce our panelists and as we give attendees a moment to join us, we want to share a couple of notes about today's presentation. First of all, the INSITE 2020 online series is being presented by Expediter Services. ES is a leader in capacity solutions and ownership opportunities. Expediter Services is pleased to have Stoops Freightliner serve as the title sponsor for INSITE 2020. Our webinar series is only one part of the INSITE 2020. ES is also producing the INSITE 2020 podcast series. Through the podcast, we offer listeners an in-depth look at key issues in the trucking industry. To listen to the podcast series and to get the latest news on the INSITE 2020, please visit the web address on your screen. Before we start our session, we'd like to take care of a couple of pointers about the platform that we're using today. If you're viewing the webcast on your phone, we recommend that you turn your phone or your mobile device to the side or the landscape position. This will give you the widest possible screen for viewing the slides. We've included the contact information for ES and the ES web address at every slide that you see. This is a live webcast, and we are taking your questions. If you have a question, please send it to us through the question platform. We are hoping to answer some of your questions at the end of the event. If we run out of time during the session, we will respond directly via email. If you're watching the replay of today's webcast, I still encourage you to submit your question through the platform also. We'll answer the questions submitted during the replay viewings by email. If you happen to encounter a technical issue during today's event, use the question platform, describe the technical issue you're experiencing. We have a dedicated person on our team who will respond to you to address technical issues related to the webinar platform. Joining me for today's discussion are Jason Williams, the President of Expediter Services, Jeff Tacker, Chief Operating Officer of Expediter Services, Joe and Carol Shelton, fleet owners in the ES community, Amy Williams, business owner in the ES community, and Jacoba Snell, owner-operator in the ES community. Some brief introductions with each of us as we get started. I own and operate the National Transportation Institute, where we serve information and support to folks that employ or contract with professional drivers or work with companies that do. We aim to deliver opportunities for fleets to grow, to attract additional workers, and then expand in their marketplace with that appropriately compensated, engaged, and retained workforce. We also help service organizations expand in the trucking industry. I serve as an officer on the board of directors of the Women in Trucking Association, and I work part-time as a talk radio host on SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking Radio. You can catch me live every weekday the first week in October from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern on Road Dog Live. Jason, I'm going to hand it off to you to reintroduce the ES family of companies, and then we'll have Jeff share a bit more about our community.
Thank you, Leah, and welcome everybody. We appreciate everyone participating in this with us. We hope that we share some valuable information for you and ultimately maybe get some conversations started within the industry between our company and your efforts that can benefit everyone involved. Expediter Services started off years ago as a fleet owner of sorts, and we morphed or pivoted very quickly into a service provider to help other people start small businesses within the expediting industry originally, but now into general trucking as well. And so we've moved into over-the-road trucking as well as LTL, dedicated truckload, and a few other industries within trucking itself. We have several efforts underneath the umbrella of ES to facilitate and bring the infrastructure together to support people as they grow a business. One is Expediter Management Services, which is where we house a lot of our infrastructure, from back office to support to 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, roadside assistance, maintenance, things of that nature. We also have a significant discount program available to all those within our community, and some industry-leading programs for shop, tires, fuel. That's as good or better than really what you see coast to coast within the country. We do have a financing effort that we started, 7 or 8 years ago, to help those as they were running into issues within the industry through several of the cycles in trucking, that banks kind of pulled their horns in and was really beginning to ask for significant down payments, extremely good credit, and they needed home ownership. So we saw the opportunity within trucking to actually own a business start going away. So we created a finance effort to support that. We do have a truck sales effort, and that is to help us facilitate people as they want to upgrade. We can help them get rid of some of their used equipment, whether it be straight trucks or tractors. Or we can go out and help people find equipment if they're looking to buy. It doesn't have to be ours. We actually work with a host of dealers. Our premier dealer, and really our company dealer, is Truck Country or Stoops Freightliner. And they're a great dealer network to work with, and they really support the community in a major way, from new trucks to keeping inventory to helping us order custom trucks and things of that nature. And then we have an insurance effort. That, even though we have an insurance company, we really bring vendors to the table to support that, and we have a tremendous support of vendors in our insurance effort to make sure that these businesses are finance-like businesses, that we take risk off the table and help them have the money necessary when things do go wrong. And in trucking, they do go wrong. And so we make sure that everyone's set up and able to move forward. So those are just some of the other companies we have underneath the umbrella of Expediter Services, which is now we've really morphed into ES because we're no longer just an expediting. And that's one thing we really want to let people know. For 3 years now, we've moved into general trucking, and we now have more tractors in general trucking than we do straight trucks in expediting. So that's something most people don't know about us, that we would like to kind of get out there and let you know that we are multifaceted. We can help you with most efforts that you're looking to do, and we just encourage you to listen and stay in tune with us, get in touch with us. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So as we move through, you'll see that we've had a vendor network or community within ES. And what I'll do is I'll kick this off to Jeff Tacker here and let him walk you through who all's inside of our community and support they bring to the table.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Leah, and thank you to our other panel participants and to the audience of each person that's tuned in or dialed in. We appreciate your time. Hopefully, we'll give you some information that you need. I believe that we will, to give you some service and some opportunity in the industry, especially during this time and this era of the COVID-19. So, but inside of that, Jason, on our community, we have been blessed to put together a package and a grouping of people that can bring benefits, advantages, and services to the independent contract drivers, owner-operators, and fleet owners that we have in our community. Our programs are set up to help everyone from the truck level up. So we've sort of what you call flipped the world upside down when it comes to our program efforts, where most people are looking at it from shipper, receiver, motor carrier, down to the necessary evil of the truck. And I'd say that tongue in cheek. We look at it from the truck level up. So we want to make sure that if the truck's taken care of, you got good equipment, and you do have good equipment by making sure you spec it properly. You've got a good network of service providers, so Stoops Freightliner. You also have to turn around and fuel that equipment. And so we've been blessed to bring the broadest and deepest fuel discounts into the industry with Love's, TA Petrol, and a few others that we've expanded our network with to help fill in some gaps nationwide as we continue to grow. With that, you need people in the trucks, obviously. So you have independent contract drivers, owner-operators, and fleet owners. And I know it's probably going to be a one-sided view, at least from me, but I think we have the best grouping of owners and fleet owners and contractors in the industry. They've proven to be on the cutting edge. They normally operate very efficiently. They function with safety in mind. They want to make sure they have the best utilization of their equipment. Therefore, their service level goes up at all the motor carriers. Now, the motor carriers that we support, most people know, there's a handful, but the ones today that we want to address and talk about that we have representatives on the phone with is FedEx Custom Critical. We support Panther Premium Logistics, a service of ArcBest, and Forward Air. So we have individual owners that you'll hear later on. I'm sure you'll get some good information from those people. And we put together several other products inside this community to help. Everything that we do, we want to increase revenue to the truck and drive down expenses to the truck, take out frustration in the cab of the truck. So I can tell you that our community and our history was built upon putting the truck and putting the people in the truck first. So with that said, Leah, I'll kick it back to you.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. I want to briefly dive into our panel of real owners that we've chosen to feature today. They were kind enough to accept our invitation to share some of their story and experiences that they've had with ES, and I think it makes sense to offer our listeners a bit of their backstory as we get further into discussion. I'm going to start with Joe and Carol Shelton. They've been in the trucking industry for 10 years. When I looked at the year, I have to tell you that I first wanted to know how they celebrated this year as a decade long in the industry, but we'll talk about that maybe after the presentation. They could have chosen just about anything to do and anywhere to go, but they began working with ES as part of their effort to build a trucking business. I previously mentioned through other of our presentations, both podcasts and webinars, that family often becomes part of the business, many times just because calls can come in at any time when you're running a business, not just 9 to 5. But the Sheltons have taken that further by incorporating their grown children into the company, and today boasting a fleet of 12 trucks. Now, in addition to family operations, expansion to fleet owners, and using prior skills to support today's ownership, Joe and Carol have a lot to share on how ES helps them to manage costs. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Next up is Amy Williams, who was first introduced to the trucking industry in 1995 when her husband Kenneth earned his CDL, and Amy was able to ride along with him. Now, like many other women that have joined the industry, Amy did so in order to accompany her husband and become a team driver. While she got out of the truck and shifted her focus to managing their family business, as her husband continues to drive, she became the frontline communications, negotiating, and working on behalf of that truck operation. Amy is also an early success story of the 150 Business Challenge that ES has in partnership with the Women in Trucking Association, along with offering us a testimonial on relationship lending, on business support, and pivoting during COVID-19. Welcome, Amy. Last, but certainly not least, is the humor of our presentation today. We're going to talk with Jacobus Snell, herein called Jaco, as he prefers. As the leadership team at ES often focuses on small business generation in line with the principles of the 4 founders of the United States, Jaco is our American dream story. In fact, when I asked him what he thought about the concept of the American dream, his quote to me was, "He is living proof of the American dream," and you will find out just how true that is. Born and raised in South Africa, Jacobus Snell became fascinated with trucking at an early age, and he learned more about the industry and developed a lifelong passion to become a professional driver in the United States. He might even tell us about some of the equipment he operated when he was still living in South Africa. It's pretty different. Now, before coming to the U.S. on a visa in 2015, Jaco got his first experience as a professional driver living in South Africa. Once here in the U.S., he worked on a farm, he got his CDL, he drove in the U.S., and he went on to attend the inaugural Success in Trucking Expo in 2019, which was held in Indianapolis. He joined the PTO program not long after and bought his first truck with ES during the peak of COVID-19 earlier this year. We're going to talk more about that later, but in the meantime, Jaco, I want to welcome you as well. Now, each of our panelists has been muted during the intro. I'm just going to remind each of you to unmute your phone and go ahead so that I can hear you as you answer my questions. I want to start off our conversation today by talking about adjusting to business during COVID-19. In the first and second webinar of this series, which you can find on demand on our website, which is at the bottom of each slide today, and also available on our YouTube channel, we started talking about beginning or launching and building your trucking business. And then we also talked about partnering with the right motor carrier, which, as Jeff said, we can elaborate a bit on today. I mentioned then that successful business owners have to monitor rapidly changing conditions, they have to manage expectations, and they have to leave room to pivot when it's absolutely necessary. We've got 4 success stories represented here today, and I'd like to hear how you've adapted and what's been the most unique and rapidly changing period of my 19-year career. Certainly, it's got to be somewhat unique for each of you, even in the years that you've been operating your business. So, Joe, I think I'll start with you. Any big changes for you as a fleet owner during this time?
Yes. I would say that one thing that I'll point out is we were always careful in the beginning to set up reserves, cash reserves, for when situations came up that we needed to deal with. And we did that, and had we not had those cash reserves, and of course the PPP and the other things that came forth helped, but we were prepared for when it happened, and it really did carry us through so far.
Good. Were you able to maintain your size and all of your operations during that period, or did you have to make any adjustments?
Currently we have 12 trucks in our fleet, and we're still at 12. We were at 12 trucks 2 years ago, so we've maintained our fleet. We've been very lucky and fortunate to have good teams driving for us, so the trucks have been moving and busy, so that's helped.
Right. Now, Amy, if I'm not off base, I think you haul some freight in the automotive industry, and certainly we know that's been impacted during COVID. Any other adjustments that you've encountered during COVID-19?
Mainly that, thankfully through being part of Expeditors, we were able to take advantage of having basically payment deferments. So that was a huge help during that time. Yes.
So Jeff or Jason, can you just mention, for the business owners in the ES community, you launched an adjustment very early on and made an offer to anyone financed in the community and impacted by COVID-19. Do you want to elaborate quickly on that?
Yes, Leah, this is Jason. So Paul Williams, who is our CEO, he holds all of our banking relationships, and that is his background. So when he saw this coming, you begin to hear about it, February, all of a sudden you're on a slippery slope in March. He reached out to all of the banks and was able to negotiate for the whole community a deferment of notes, so it was interest only during that time period, which on a truck note, interest only is a few $100s versus $2,000 to $3,000. So, and everybody's was a little different, but he was able to put that in place and had the banks prepared, for harder conversations if necessary. Now, thank the good Lord they didn't take place, but part of the community is we do leverage the size of the community, and you're talking about, $60, $70 million worth of equipment flowing through here. So that gives him a lot of leverage to go and talk to banks, and everybody gets to participate in that conversation.
I smile because when I posed this question to Jaco, he really had a different type of response, and I want to point out that in trucking, There were some down periods, at peak during the months of April and May, but there are some organizations that haul consumer goods, household goods, that have been busy the entire period of COVID and coming out of it. And Jaco had a unique experience where his business, not only, he was thriving in the PTO program, but he was even approved for financing during COVID because he was so successful. Jaco, do you want to add anything about your experience during COVID-19?
Hi, Leah. Yeah, it was kind of scary at one stage, not sure what the future may hold. And I mean, thing is just to keep your head calm and push forward. I mean, just keep what you're doing and look at the positive side of what you can achieve in that. So it was kind of hard, but the thing is, you've got to be willing and available to do the extra and go the extra mile. And, hardworking, not scared of it, just keep on going at it.
Good advice, and I would agree as a business owner, and probably true during any type of crisis, that you really do just have to trudge forward. I want to transition to partnering with the ES community. We know that ES doesn't stop at financing the truck. As Jeff elaborated, the community provides support and leverage. They provide carrier advocacy so that business owners can focus on generating revenue and not on day-to-day issues. And they also leverage their experience and contacts to negotiate and make available a variety of other resources and services to their business community. The motto, of course, being that with ES, you never stand alone. And you might even hear me repeat that because it is a recurring theme that we hear from each of the owners featured today. We heard from Jeff talking about the community, but our invitation today was to focus on some real owners and some real success stories within the community. When I talked with each of you, all of you mentioned the business support that has been made available to you at ES. Joe, I want to start with you because I know that you have a lot to say about the support and the services that are available within the community at ES.
Yeah, I'd love to. I preach about ES all the time to all the other owners that I talk to, and I'm not always sure they understand what I'm saying, but I'll go for it. Some of the things that matter to us with ES is their maintenance program, their EFS program, their sales and their finance and their business partners, and Jeff talked about all those to start with. But it's true. The maintenance issue is a big deal, a very big deal. We have 12 trucks, and we're the family business with 4 members of the family. And we were getting calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning when a truck's got a problem, and it just goes on, and you're never getting any rest, and there's always problems. Well, part of what ES offers is their maintenance program, and they give us 24-hour maintenance support. They're always available, and they can handle most things on the basic level. We're able to set actual parameters with the maintenance guys, and they know what we'll allow them to do without even calling and asking for permission. And if it gets real serious, then they know they can always wake us up. But that hadn't happened but maybe once in the last 2 years, so it's not a big deal. They're always able to handle whatever comes up during the late hours of night, and they pre-schedule maintenance, so that helps also. Maintenance I can't talk about enough. It just means the world to us, and it prevents us from having to hire another employee to do that. So that's a savings. The EFS system, they were on EFS. FedEx has been on EFS. We're FedEx owners, and they've been on it for about a year or so, and Expediter Services has been on the EFS system for almost 3 years. And because of their banking background and their abilities to negotiate, they've gotten about every dollar's worth they could out of the EFS system. They allow us to, through the EFS, they deposit money in our account at the end of each load, and there's a different percentages for different owners, but it helps your cash flow, and we're always, with a push of a button, able to see what's going on. And they've negotiated with EFS where the parameters that are established against the card are flexible, and that's a big deal because FedEx doesn't do that very well, and I don't think any of the other big guys do either because they just don't negotiate as well as Expediter Services does. That's where Paul comes in, I think. And then the sales and finance, we don't use. Go ahead.
I was just going to tell you, I have to believe that Paul is grinning at what you just said, and then you said that. Sorry about that, Joe.
The sales and financing, we don't finance through Expediter Service, but they have assisted us a lot with sales. And by that, if I have a truck that's aging out and it needs to be sold, they don't give me any grief about it. They just post it, they advertise it, and they take the calls, and they'll call me and send it to me and say, hey, this party's interested in this truck. But they have finance trucks that I've sold through other individuals. So I can't talk enough about that. It's always very helpful. The negotiation on the fuel prices and the maintenance charges and for tires and those truck washes, all those things, they negotiate. I think at Blue Beacon, I think we pay, $37 a truck for a car wash once a month, and that's like half of what you would charge if you walked up to the counter. So that's just a demonstration of their ability to negotiate. And they get the best fuel prices in the industry. They get better fuel price discounts than even FedEx does. And again, that's the personal ability to negotiate that the big corporations just don't have. We consider them a business partner, and when I say that, you've got to have a couple of partners in this business to succeed. And one of them, of course, is a lawyer, and one of them is an accountant. And we look at Expediter Services. They function as our agent, and that's exactly what they are, as an agent. And their legal backing, everything about what they do is to support us, and they're always readily available. Jeff Tacker's one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry on all the little details, and I can't count the times that I've been in a panic and I've called him up and said, Jeff, I'm not sure what to do here. What's going on with the industry? What are we going to do? And what should we do? And he's always a wealth of help and information. And you talk about an insurance. Insurance alone is enough to justify the expense of being a member of the group. What they save in insurance is enormous. They get great rates. And when I talk to other owners about this, they say, well, why do you use Expediter Services? Why don't you just work directly with the carrier? And Expediter Services charges us $12.50 per truck per week, and I have 12 trucks, so that's $150 a month. Now, $150 a month is nothing in this industry, and I don't understand really why other owners don't see that. It's the only true cost to us from Expeditors, and everybody's under the opinion that Expeditors makes a bunch of money off their owners, and that's, I'm sure they make money off of us, but that $12.50 is all that comes out of my check going directly to them. I don't know what the other costs are that people are talking about. Any money that they make, they're making from the carriers and the other people. They're not taking that out of my pocket. So I can't speak highly enough about the partnership. Carol, you want to add anything to that?
I think you pretty well covered everything.
I agree. I do agree. I actually think you shared so much there that I don't have any questions. So I want to transition over to the 150 Business Challenge and the growth and the impact of women-owned businesses in the trucking industry. I mentioned earlier that I serve on the board of directors of the Women in Trucking Association, along with Jason Williams, who's on with us today. My passion for helping fleets grow the percentage of women in trucks and in management goes beyond that, though. And certainly it's been impacted often being the only one or one of a few women that's in the boardroom working with companies. New each week that say, we have only a few single-digit percentage of women represented at our company. How can we do more? The companies that NTI tracks with the highest percentage of women offer opportunities to grow, to lead, to team, to prosper. 38% of the women served at ES are, in fact, I'm sorry, I said women, but I meant workers. 38% of the workers that are served at ES are, in fact, women, which is nearly 4 times the national average. And I think those numbers tell a story. We've invited one of the very early success stories of the Women-Owned Business Challenge, which is Amy Williams, to the panel today. Amy, you're one of our success stories, and we had conversation about how you are essentially what I would see as being ES's biggest fan. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that partnership and what it's done for you and your husband?
Well, goodness, Joe took a lot of what I was going to say out of what I was going to say, but the partnership basically has been fantastic. Next month it will be 3 years since we did our financing through Expeditors, and the one thing I will talk about is the financing side. My husband and I have a background where we had purchased a truck a while back, and it ended up being a lemon on us. And long story short, we ended up having to get rid of the truck. It was giving us a lot of issues with the engine, and then we went to Panther Premium, and we were doing a lease purchase program, which at that point, you eventually get to a point where you're just like, you're paying on this lease and you're never going to just see a benefit of ever owning the truck. And so then along came Expediter Services, and they started offering where you could get financing through them. And at first I thought, this sounds very skeptical. I'm skeptical of this whole financing thing and how easy it sounded to be able to possibly get financing through them. And so kind of a long story short, they ended up, they checked our credit, and of course our credit wasn't that great, but they don't just go by what your credit is. It's your work ethic, how you've been with the carrier that you've been with, what type of person you are, and that really was nice to see that somebody didn't just go by some number that's on the paper and say that, well, because you have a low credit score, you're just not worthy of getting financing. So that was a huge help for us, and thanks to them we were able to get a brand new truck, and it was the best decision we ever made.
That's great to hear. So Jeff, Amy just mentioned your approach to relationship lending. Can you talk about that briefly, please, and elaborate?
Sure. Thank you. And I'll just go ahead and say now, Joe, thank you for your kind words, and Amy, thank you for yours. And I know Jaco will follow them up with his. But with that topic, we look at financing based upon attitude, aptitude, work ethic, and work history. And we are a relationship lender. So we want to do business with good people, and we like to get to know the people that we're doing business with. So while a lot of industries and a lot of people in the financing segment of the industry takes a different approach, we've chose to decide to link up with the good people, because there's things that happen. Bad things can happen to good people. That doesn't mean that the people are bad. And we've proven that we've been blessed with many, many, many wonderful people, that if we would have just looked at it from one perspective, it would have been bad. But now our program set up, we can help people on the whole spectrum of the financing platform. So because we use different parameters, we got a proprietary credit box that, as Jason mentioned, Paul's in banking, and he came out of banking back before they even had credit scores. Not trying to tell on Paul's age, but he's got a wealth of knowledge with that, and so he helped us set that up with the way we want to evaluate with proprietary credit box. And then you just go to work and get to knowing the people. We spend most of our time in building the relationships to make those decisions.
Leah, one thing, just I wanted to jump in there. This is Jason, that I do want people to realize, since this is a conversation, we're letting people get to know us. So when we started this business, we know what it means to have to close businesses. We know what it means whether you lose a truck or lose a business. We know what that means. You try, it doesn't work. You try, it doesn't work. And each of those gyrations cost you money. It costs you time. It costs you credit score. There's slow pay involved. That happens. And our story is not unlike that. When we started this effort, I can tell you that my wife and I personally, we had gotten 3-4 months behind on house notes. We had times where we couldn't fix air conditioners in the summer of Mississippi, in the heat of the Mississippi Delta. You have those things that that are going on, but you keep working and pushing through. So when Jeff talks about relationship lending, that is not cliche. We want to get to know people. We know what it means to have to push through a hard time to get ahead. Jeff comes from a farming background. He knows what it means as a young boy in school to have to come home and run a tractor in order to get a crop in because that's what his family was going to eat that winter. So you know those things, and that's just part of it. So when people get to know us, we are thankful that we've been blessed in this effort, but at the heart of it is just getting to know people and is giving them opportunity based upon the individual, not because they've had negatives. In fact, we would rather deal with the negatives and know them and see how people got through them than finance a great credit score, and you really don't know who that person is when they get punched in the mouth.
While I have you, the initial topic on this particular segment was related to the 150 Business Challenge, and you joined me on SiriusXM on the Women in Trucking show recently, and it occurred to me that with the unique needs and challenges that face women in the industry, it strikes me that maybe relationship lending and looking at the whole picture of what a driver brings as they look at expansion into ownership, real ownership, that there must be different needs or unique needs of men and women alike. And so do you want to just touch on that briefly? Sure.
And obviously there's norms, I guess, or there's buckets, and then some people, straddle or go against the norm. And so I don't want what I say to be offensive to anyone, but a lot of this, I've learned from you. I've learned from Miss Ellen at Women in Trucking and others that some of the differences in just how you have to be on purpose about building a service offering to recognize those differences and then meet those needs. So if you'll take Miss Amy herself versus Joe versus Miss Carol, when those calls come in, we do recognize that I can tell you, Miss Carol Shelton, we know well enough she's detailed. She's going to pull out an accounting ledger. She's going to write down everything you say, and then she's going to hold you accountable to that 10 years from now. So you better have your ducks in a row. Joe is...
Carol, did he have that right?
No, I'm not that bad, Jason.
Yes, he is.
Joe, you hear the husband, so there it is. So Joe, on the other side, Joe is what I would say is what most people think as an American male. He's aggressive. He'll take a risk. If he thinks he sees an opportunity, he'd bet the farm right now to say, give me a shot. I think I can hit the ball, throw it. And so you take those two together, and what you have is a great team. And so when you deal with someone a dominant personality like Joe, there's a lot of sales, there's a lot of confrontation. This is good. This is not bad. He's going to challenge you. He's going to throw out his own ideas. He's going to push the envelope for what can and can't get done. Miss Carol's going to come in behind, and she's going to want to know the details, prove it to me, iron it out in front of me, and obviously she'll take a risk, but it's going to be on a known factor or with more information behind it. And so we find that it's just the way a lot of the differences in male and female, period, and that I know myself. And so I operate that way. Once I feel like I can move forward, I'll move forward. And sometimes I may jump too quick. But we have people in the office who balance me out as well that says, hold on, did you find this out? Did you get this information? Did you do this? I'm sure that's why Miss Amy, stepped out of the truck and is now running the business from home, because somebody has to get the details and push the details through to make sure you're building a good business. You're not building a house of cards. So that's not to say that men can't excel in one and women can't excel in the other, but we do find that there's major differences for the most part in order to service the two groups. And whether or not it's genetic or whether or not it's just taught by culture, I don't know. But I do know it's real, and we attempt inside this office to have the ability to speak to either side, same information, same data, same opportunity. But it is a little different, and we do find women by far more collaborative, whereby they want to think about it, they want to talk about it, they want They do want to never stand alone a little more. Not all women, but they tend to run more as teams in the truck. They don't really like running as solos as much, just things of that nature. And so some of the support structures that we have has been driven by those requests, where a lot of times men get a little edge on their shoulder. And Joe's not this way, by the way, but they get an edge where you can't really tell them, and you got to kind of wait for them to fail before they'll take advice on some things. And so the men on the call today are successful, and they've proven they can take data and run with it. But we do find it's different, and you just have to be able to respond to the two different groups as necessary.
Well, at nearly 4 times the national average of women represented within the ES community, I think that it's pretty safe to say that you found the approach, and the approach is that it might be slightly different between the two, but ultimately, as I mentioned before, the companies that we track that have the highest percentage of women, which quite frankly don't even get close to yours, are offering opportunities to grow, to lead, to team, and to prosper. And so that tells me, that they can find those qualities at the community within ES. I want to shift over to the transition of growth, and I have so many questions for each of you related to this. So I do also want to keep us on time and on topic, but I want to ask each of our panelists to share. I think about tell us briefly first, either Jeff or Jason. I call it the PTO program. It's been referenced recently as Try Before You Buy. Can you just talk briefly about the PTO program before I ask Jaco his question?
Sure. This is Jeff, Leah. And so what we established is we found out that many people wanted to try things, but there's some financial obligations that come along with trucking, because it's very cash intensive, and it sometimes can be risky with some unknowns. So we came out and started a program, Try It Before You Buy It, Pathway to Ownership. It allows someone to get on a piece of our equipment and rent it, so to speak, so it eliminates or greatly mitigates any financial risk and obligations they'll have, so they can get in the truck and make sure they like the industry. They can make sure they like us. They can make sure they like the equipment type, and they can make sure they like and feel comfortable with the motor carrier that they want to participate in. So that's what we did, set that program up to give them a time period to help someone get into that position before they jumped in feet first or head first into the trucking pool. So that's really the way that's it.
Okay, so Jaco, you're in America. You want to drive truck. Then you drive truck. Then you go to this trucking expo, and you meet the entire community that's together represented as ES, and you very soon after enter the PTO program. Do you want to just talk briefly about that, as you've again, being highlighted today as our story of the American dream?
Yeah. I saw this on Facebook. They advertised it, and I told my wife, it's like, hey, I think I want to go do this, because at that stage I was like in a, what do you call this lease purchase program, like one of the other people said earlier. And the thing is, it didn't really work out very well, because I got my fingers burned a couple of times, and I told my wife, hey, what do you think? And my wife actually ended up going with me to the expo, and attended it, and I was pretty happy with what I heard. And upon that, I made my decision and ended up with Expediter Services.
And Amy, you are a testament to being financed based on a number of factors, and that encompassing together can prove your reliability and your ability to own your own business. Just do you want to share anything about your experience with a transition from being in a lease purchase program to true ownership experience with ES?
Well, like I was saying, that one of the best parts was that they we already had a relationship with Panther Premium, so because we had been with them for 4 years, basically they were able to use our net worth and or basically what we were making with them to see if it was something that would qualify for their program, and if we were already at a kind of a threshold to see if we were making it in the industry. And I think they saw early on, obviously, that we were making pretty good money, and that was under a lease purchase. So why not transition over to financing a truck with them, which is what we ended up doing, and then the rest is history.
The rest is history. I asked the two of you about that because I think that career path is vital, and it's something that's often missing from many professional drivers' careers. It's in a traditional workplace, you might progress from one stage of work to another and ultimately peak in your career is expected. So being an owner-operator satisfies that need for drivers historically, and I think that to do so with the support of at ES and with the community ensures that the owner has an extra safety net for success. Joe and Carol, I want to now ask you, because I think that same success and reaching that pinnacle of owning your own business, then it can grow from there and become a 2-truck operation or 3-truck operation. In your case now, a 12-truck operation. Ensuring that independent contractors thrive in partnership requires a different set of priorities than it does company drivers and employees, and I'm sure you would agree with me on that. The other thing that I know you agree with me on is that the greatest challenge facing every business in America today is people. And maybe there's a few exceptions because of COVID, but I think we'll quickly get back to that, much like trucking has. And so that issue today is finding and retaining top talent. And again, especially true in the trucking industry. We're running out of drivers, and our ability to replace them is pretty difficult, has a lot of challenges. Joe, you and I talked about this. So, you've made some decisions at your company to put drivers first, to set up your equipment in a certain way, to treat your people with respect. Can you share with us some of the details that have helped you to grow as fundamental requirements at your company?
Yeah, I can comment on that. I guess I would say that because we were truck drivers ourselves originally, we have empathy for what it is like to be in the truck. And it's a hard job. It's not an easy job. People, they look at trucking from the outside and they say, I could do that. That's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's hard work. And whether you're profitable or not, it's really your work ethic versus your work ethic is directly related to your income. And the first thing people always ask me is, what can I make? And it depends on how hard you work. It does. One of the things we've noticed recently is we're getting more people from the outside. There are a few people moving around internally in the industry, so it's outside people coming in. And there's that first 3 or 4 weeks that you encounter when you move into this industry where there's no income. I mean, the first week you work, you're not getting paid. You're earning money. Mm-hmm. The second week, you're starting to get some money from the first week you worked, and by the third week, you're starting to cycle along okay. So if you're down, the people that we're getting calls from nowadays, they've been stuck in the COVID rut here for way too long, and they'll call us and they'll say, we really want to do this. We've thought about it, and one of the things I ask them now is, well, can you afford to go 3 or 4 weeks without a paycheck? And it's a serious problem. These people don't have the money to cover themselves for that first 3 or 4 weeks when they're out on the road learning how to do the business, because you can't start the first day of this job and be very profitable. It's not going to happen. There's a month or so before you get used to what's going on and learn how things work, and then there's another month of perfecting that, and then by the third month you're doing pretty good. And you have to plan for that. That's not an accident. So we've been very cautious lately about making sure people understood that up front. And we've lost a couple of people right down to the wire where we're ready to put them in the truck, and they just can't afford to make it. And that's a problem.
So that cash reserves that you mentioned early on, Jeff and Jason, do you want to add anything to that about the early days in trucking and transitioning to growth from one truck to multiple trucks, either point?
No, Joe's right on, Leah. This is Jason, and it's you do have to have cash reserves. We do attempt to help people, as some have mentioned here, with their cash flow from maintenance and fuel advances and things of that nature. We do think the discounts that we can bring to the table, they can generate from several $100s a truck to $1,000+ a truck to help them make that transition. But ultimately, you have to be planning for success. You have to sacrifice some right now wants in order to get your business over the hump if you want to grow into a fleet owner. And it is cash. Cash is king in business, and you have to be able to put it aside when you have it, so you have it there when it's needed.
Thank you. Related to the community of support and services, at NTI, we analyze every aspect related to professional drivers and their career, to perks, to programs, to owner-operator success, and then the market itself. And conditions like capacity, driver supply, demand, driver pay, these conditions are generally moving every quarter, but in the last couple of months, it seems like the market is changing. Boy, I was saying week to week, sometimes I think it's day to day. The entire world continues to try to bounce back slowly from that peak period of COVID, but our industry is coming back blazing. Tell us about current conditions for you and how you see the road ahead for you and for your business. Jaco, how's business for you today?
Well, I must say I've been kept pretty busy, and it's just you have to have the availability to do something. When you offer a load, take it, and communication is key in the transport industry as well. If you're available, let the people know, that the necessary people know, and just keep going. There's no other way in transport. 1 week you're going to have a good week, next week might be a bad week, and that's just the transport industry. It's never like a perfect climb. There's always an up and down in it, and you just got to roll with the punches and just keep your head up and keep moving.
And you've mentioned to me many times, the business support at ES being extremely useful. Do you want to touch on that? And, without feeding the ego of Jeff too high, of course. But I know that's been really meaningful to you.
Yeah, I must say, I've dealt with a couple of companies, and even in South Africa. It's just, there's just another atmosphere. Even when you walk into the office by Jeff and them, it's just you always feel welcome to be there. And the programs they've got us on with the fuel savings and the maintenance plans and all that kind of good stuff. That helps you a lot in the long run. And what I can say about Expeditors was my experience with them being almost a year and a half there with them now. They're true to their word, and I appreciate the help and the advice they give you. And every time you need a question answered or something you don't know about, they're always ready with an answer to help you figure it out and move ahead from there. And really, I'm very happy with Expeditors where I'm at this stage. I cannot complain about nothing.
It's all three. It's four of you represented, but all three companies have mentioned, related to the community, increasing revenue, driving down costs, taking the frustration out of the truck, and just overall, removing the distractions and any of the angst related to just a few, not limited to, but to fuel, to repairs, to maintenance, et cetera. Joe and Carol, what does the road look like for you ahead in light of the season today?
Well, we've done very well this year. This has been one of our best months ever. But of course, we've got the best teams in the business, so they're the ones that bring it every day and make us successful.
We have this is
Oh, Joe,
this is Joe.
sorry
We
about
have
that.
reviewed-
Go ahead, Joe.
We have reviewed actually we looked at 18, 19, and 20, the years for incomes and month by month, and it's not that far out of whack being COVID and everything, but it's hard to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. The year's been pretty good so far, and back to Jeff for just an instant. The last big conversation him and I had was I called him up and I said, Jeff, I don't know whether I should add more trucks or whether I should sell some trucks, or what do you think's going to happen in the business? And we talked. I think we probably talked for an hour and a half. And he was a wealth of experience and information and what are other people in the industry doing, and that's a big deal. I'm contracted under FedEx Custom Critical, but they're under Panther and they're under the other ones they're under, and so they're seeing it from more than one direction. And when they, it's in order to form a pattern, they can do that much better than I can.
Gotcha. Amy, anything to add on the future and the road ahead?
Well, the future is definitely bright if we stay with Expeditors, that's for sure. I mean, they just have been such a blessing to us. I could not see doing this without them. People talk so much about Jeff, and I mean, he truly is like a cheerleader for everybody. You call him up anytime, it seems like day or night, he's always there for you. And anybody at Expeditors, if you call them up, they're there to help you. And so when they say, you won't stand alone, I mean, they truly mean that. They truly mean it.
Yeah, it's interesting, Amy. I want to just ask you. I didn't prep you for this question, but it came up on social media. I saw someone ask ES, related to all of their services and the motto of never stand alone. And we've heard Jason say over and over that every discount, every bit of carrier advocacy, every bit of leveraging experience and contacts to negotiate, that's all in order to help. And someone asked on social media, what's in it for them? And my first instinct is to respond that they want to help. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, just what you're saying. I mean, they want to help, and people that are skeptical. I mean, I can understand. Like I said in the beginning, we were skeptical about it, but as you get to form a relationship with them, you will find out that they're true to their word. It is what they say it is.
Very good. Well, on our last webinar where we featured the motor carriers that each of you also are working with in a variety of ways, Nick Birch was on that call. He's from Panther, which is a service of ArcBest, and he said he made reference to ES and said, now is the time and this is the place. And that really speaks to me. In front of you here on this screen is a variety of ways that you can be in touch with Expediter Services. And in addition to that, by registering with us today, we'll automatically remind you of upcoming events. Jason, before I thank everyone, is there anything you want to add about now being the time and this being the place?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I do want to thank everybody for being a part of this. And I would just like to say that the success that each of these represent is real. They have, no one to credit but themselves, their own hard work. We've been blessed by being allowed to service them and be a part of their journey and their story. And we're thankful for the role they allow us to play. And so I'm very thankful that these and others have found some value in what we do, and we continue to tweak and we continue to change ourselves as we find ways that we can bring more value. But we are in that position of a service provider. We're here to serve people. We're here to help them. Everybody needs different things, but we'll certainly do all that we can. And at the end of the day, what we want to do is bring opportunity and then get out of your way and let you take that as far as you can and support you along the way. So just want to thank everyone, and yourself included, Leah. We really appreciate you. Do a really great job for the community getting this information out there, and we appreciate your time involved in this.
You are most welcome. You're kind to say. Joe and Carol, Amy, and Jaco, I want to thank you for participating today. I know that asking you to share some of your own experience and information is a little bit outside of your normal day-to-day, but I really do appreciate it, and I know that the folks at ES do too. ES really hopes that you'll take the time to join their community in a variety of ways, to get in touch and to stay in touch. And again, you can email us, you can visit us online, you can check out the other webinar replays and podcasts for the INSITE 2020 series, and you can join our Facebook group, which is the Success in Trucking community. We hope that you'll get in touch and stay in touch. And in the meantime, you stay safe and well and connected, as with ES, you never stand alone. Thank you so much.